Things are getting crazy. Files that are getting released on this Epstein stuff is scary. Isn't it?
Worse than Diddy and his freak-off parties. I don't know if they see the web of tentacles or whatever and how far these things stretch. It's kind of like, holy shit.
Who is running the world? These super elites. If they make a request to this democratically elected leader to say, I need this, and if you don't give me what I need, I'll take my business elsewhere. Ooh, I probably need to do what he says. I think you've spent an entire lifetime building this infrastructure, this business, and you've now got Epstein who has got you by the absolute neck. You have no choice but to listen to what he wants and what he says.
We've opened the lid on Pandora's box just that little bit at the moment because still only half of the files have come out.
We do need a complete restart. Things are getting crazy. Things are getting crazy. The data and the reports and the emails and the files that are getting released daily on this Epstein stuff is scary, isn't it?
It's worse than Diddy and his freak-off parties.
Literally.
I bet they know each other or knew each other, I suppose.
Why? My first question, why now? Why are all of these things starting to come to light? Do you think it's the access to information, people's access to information, smartphones, social media, people talking? Has this just always happened? You know, if we were to go back to the Middle Ages, would you be sort of hearing about, you know, the barons having freak-off parties with the maidens? It's like, is this just something that's always happened? Or why now? Why are we getting access and leaked to this information? And I know obviously Donald Trump is releasing the files. But again, like you said, with the Diddy parties and stuff, what is happening?
See, I just think we're in a time now with independent journalism that's absolutely exploded. Hence the podcast. But like we've got these new modes of information, and you get someone like Donald Trump who has ran his campaign, not for the most part, but he mentioned about releasing Epstein files during his entire presidential campaign to become president again. So I think because of the independent journalism, people are now holding him to account to say, so you're going to bring the files out then? And everyone who's putting into these positions like the FBI, like Kash Patel, who he put in, he was being interviewed. I think he went on Joe Rogan and before they got in, and it was like, so you're going to release the files then? You said you're going to do it. And Cash is like, yeah, I'm releasing the files, like 100%. Like this woman called Pam Bondi. You're releasing the files? Yeah, I'm releasing the files. They get in. And then it's kind of like, I don't know if they see the web of tentacles or whatever and how far these things stretch. That actually, it's kind of like, holy shit. Like there's people, powerful people coming up to him. I mean, Bill Gates was in it. Ironically, Elon Musk was in it. And it's like all these powerful people then go, Jesus, actually, Trump, you can't release that, mate. Jesus Christ. But then he's got the pressure from the public and independent journalism saying, well, you said you were going to do it. So what's going on there? Are you in the files? And then Elon Musk, I don't know if you remember, he tweeted after their bust up and he had a black eye at one point and he put, Trump's in the Epstein files and he tweeted it to the world and then put good night or something. That was literally it. That was the tweet. And this is before any of the major stuff had even come out or any of these new files had come out. So then he was under a stupid amount of pressure to be like, well, I have to release them now because everyone knows I'm in the files or thinks I'm in the files because Elon Musk, who's probably seen a lot of it, has said it. So I think, you know, there's been a few catalysts. And
so independent journalism, I can see that as being a massive reason for it. And the overarching real topic that we want to discuss is who is running the world, how much power do these elites have, how much power do the rich have, and the reality is, and this is just basic societal norm for as long as time has existed, as long as human history has gone on, and the most resourceful people, whether you go back to the caveman days where we had tribes, if you were the best hunter, you were one of the most valuable people in that tribe. And so if you weren't the leader of the tribe, you best believe that the leader of that tribe needed to keep you sweet to make sure you are in their tribe, because without you, they have no food. Without you, their society collapses, their tribe dies. And so, extrapolating that now out to the modern day, these super, super, super rich people, you can describe them as hunters, describe them as, resourceful people that have technologies. They're designing technologies. For example, Elon Musk. He is working, and everyone's saying, well, he doesn't design anything. Look, it's irrelevant. He builds the company and the infrastructure that collects the best brains, that collects the best people who come together to build the rocket technology to make us a multiplanetary species. Is that a valuable asset to a country? Absolutely. Rocket technology, and it not only is what people are really coining as the first $1 trillion industry is the mining of space, and he is working towards that future. So is there a massive value in what Elon's doing? Yes. Okay, so does that mean that the leaders of a country would kind of need to pander to Elon in a sense to make sure that he's building rockets in their country, giving him the infrastructure, giving him what he needs to be able to achieve his mission, knowing that actually it's going to benefit the country and the people within the country? Well, yeah. So that's where we ask this question of like, who's really running things? A leader of a country essentially is put there in the West, in a democracy, is put there by the people, as elected by the people to do the bidding of the people. But there are those key individuals within society, your Bill Gates, your Elon Musk, your Jeff Bezos, these super elites that have built infrastructure and built technology, and your Nvidias, and you've got your sort of Microsoft, you got all these companies. If they make a request to this democratically elected leader to say, I need this, and if you don't give me what I need, I'll take my business elsewhere, because any other country in the world will have me and my ideas and my technology. And then you start getting into this place of, I probably need to do what he says because I need his money, because he's generating billions in jobs and in tax and in revenue and in some cases tourism and people that want to come, and other businesses that then see what's going on, like Silicon Valley being the hub for tech and for AI. So having that hub then brings other people from around the world and other incredible people and brains and minds and technologies from all over to your front door. And so if you're there saying, I need access to this and that, you've got to think, are they getting it or not? And the answer is, if you were a smart leader, unfortunately, that's when this power struggle starts happening as to when do you say no, who do you say no to, and what can you afford to say no to?
Well, this is why the centralization of power, like if you've got it in the handful of a few companies, you're at the bidding of those few companies, just the same as if you had one government with all power, you're beholden to then the power of that one government. So the best way of distributing it evenly, you'd think, would be to try and have as many big companies, but not too big as possible. So if someone like Microsoft say, we're taking it elsewhere, it's kind of like, well, we've got Google here, so actually it doesn't really matter. Like, it does matter, obviously, but they lose the leverage. So when they say, we don't want the rich and tax the rich and all this sort of stuff, actually what they should try and do is incentivize more people to build another Google or another Amazon that then compete, so they don't have a monopoly over the government and the people then.
Yeah, 100% couldn't agree more. It's a really good point. And what is happening is these big businesses are being created and then buying up and creating these monopolies. They buy up all of the smaller businesses and create this market share to then almost make it impossible. But from a business sense in the modern day now, you've got so much opportunity with such low cost. Back in the day, it was impossible to build a brand like Coca-Cola, a drinks beverage, because the infrastructure required for you to do that, and then the money that you would need to market a new beverage and a new drinks product was so impossible to actually even begin to start. Coca-Cola had pretty much free reign. And now, because of social media, you've got all these new drinks companies that are coming out. Perfect Ted is a great one. I'm going to do a shout out to Night and Day Energy, absolute new game changer that's come into the beverage space, where it's like a health mixer that's going to go into your spirit that you've got as on a night out. If you're drinking vodka, gin, rum, whatever spirit of your choice is, rather than having it with a poisonous lemonade or Coke or Red Bull, you would have it with a Night and Day. And there are electrolytes and glutathione in there and good vitamins that are going to help you fend off hangovers. Now,
Lovely, by the way.
It's a great drink, Night and Day. Will doing a smashing job. Coming to a store near you soon. But that ability to then market that drink through social media, through podcasting, through YouTube, it's free media, free advertising, and it's free content compared to before. So it's these monopolies are scared of these small businesses. So I completely agree with what you're saying. But again, there are still only one Amazon, one Microsoft. And if, because of this digital age that we live in now, so easy to just pick up and move. And this is that whole debate between Gary's economics.
Good old Gary.
Shout out Gary. And we saw Daniel Priestley on the Stephen Bartlett, the Over CEO podcast, where they had a debate about taxing the rich and how that would work or wouldn't work based on your opinion. And the rich are simply saying, well, if this particular country treats me a certain way, I'll just pick up my infrastructure, pick up my resources, pick up my business, pick up all of my IP, all of my designs, all of my technology, and I'll just move it. I don't care. I'll give it to somebody else and they'll pay me. It makes no odds to me. But then you're now damaging your own country. So this is where leaders now are having to pander to these elites, because the elites have become more powerful than the leaders of the countries themselves. And this is where now we're in this attempt of really asking ourselves, who is actually in charge anymore? Who is actually in control? Because before, as a country, certainly during the Industrial Revolution, whether you're in the US with the Rockefellers and the Fords, or, you know, you've got these big companies that are limited by geography to the countries that they're trading within. So the leadership of that country knows that they have no choice, realistically, but to say, do as you're told, otherwise we're going to shut your factories down. And the leadership pretty much has to say they have that ability, and the elites of the time would have to say, oh, right, well, kind of got to do as I'm told. Whereas now, there's no factories to shut down. It's all digital. Us again. We're still here. That subscribe button is feeling awfully lonely. Give it a click.
And the like. But yeah, exactly. Yeah, it makes it easy to move. And I look at it, there's branches of power. There's like the large corporations, there's governments, and then there's like these spy agencies, I suppose, like FBI, and then we're kind of trickling back into, you know, Epstein and all these things, and Mossad and FBI and MI5. And it's kind of like, I think there's good to have as many different branches as possible, because it separates the power as opposed to have it concentrated in one area, because that's when it's really dangerous, because you're completely unopposed. But, you know, like when it comes to who's controlling the world, I think there's a mixture of all of it, but there's definitely some shady stuff going on with files, and it's in the computer situations.
Well, this is a thing with it, because it's like because you've then got these people of power that are the ones making the decisions that, look, yes, are limited still by the laws of the country that they're in. They're not completely they're not completely void of having to follow and adhere to the regulations and laws of that country, provided it still benefits them and their businesses. But with the people that then are owning and ruling these companies, it only takes then one person, cue Jeffrey, who starts to find an element of success and rub shoulders with these people and start to be quite tactical in his dealings with them and befriending them and creating this illusion of friendliness and
tomfoolery.
No, just sort of secrecy more than anything, where they can feel safe and be themselves. And, you know, I'm your friend Jeff. We're all close here, and we can start to have, you know, more of a secret relationship, and we're doing these things. And all of a sudden, then you find yourself where Epstein is then saying to these people, I've got this, and we've got some information on you that would now cripple and destroy everything that you've built. And again, if you're Elon Musk, if you're Donald Trump, if you're Bill Gates, if you're all these people that are appearing up on these files, I think you've spent an entire lifetime building this infrastructure, this business, this lifestyle, this position of power. And you've now got Epstein, who has got you by the absolute neck. And you have no choice but to listen to what he wants and what he says. You're left in this awkward position. Well, do I do the right thing and the honest thing and say, this is, you know, I've Bill Gates, I've cheated on my wife and given her an STI. Do I want to
clap?
Do I want to tell her that? And then not only have I done that, I've confided in my mate Jeffrey to try and help cover it up and cure her without her knowing, because I'm you know what I mean? It's this sick stuff that's happening. And Epstein's going, don't worry, Bill. You can trust me. I'm your close friend. And think how much power Bill Gates has got when it comes to all of the work that he's doing in global medicine and Medicaid and all the stuff that he's doing there. And then just the actual infrastructure of Microsoft, which is literally almost on over half of all computers in the world, if not more. And it's his infrastructure. And so now he owes Jeffrey Epstein a favor, and Jeffrey Epstein knows that he can get what he wants from these people. So this is where this whole Epstein Files is so crazy, to see what is really going on behind the closed door of these elites.
Yeah, it's like we've literally now opened the lid on Pandora's box just that little bit at the moment, because still only half of the files have come out. And what people are worried about is they've given enough to kind of say, look, this is pretty, so people will go, holy shit, this is bad. But then maybe try and just trickle in the rest that aren't, and then keep back the really bad stuff, because we've not really seen, it's been bad. And, you know, it's funny because Elon Musk was one of the people that really did catalyze to make sure these kind of came out by saying that Trump's in the files, which they had a bit of a bust up, didn't they? I think at one point.
Funny enough, so is he.
And then funnily enough, yeah, as you say, Mr. Elon Musk sending an email going, hey, Jeff, love to let loose. It's been a heavy year with SpaceX and Tesla. Like, I'd love to come down to the mansion and have a party, get wet and wild. But then, luckily for him, probably, at least in the files we've seen so far, he kind of blanked him and ghosted him. He was like, look, Jeff, I think I'm going to have to bail. I'm, you know, not feeling too great. Probably had too much pop noodles or something. But
but look, with that, the evidence is there. And then you hear about these things, and these people then get invited and told that there's this, you know, this island of fantasies that come true for people, the sick people. But they probably get told in earnest to begin with. It's like, if you got an invitation to this paradise island that was guaranteed to be full of attractive people, that were full of successful people that were here to mix and network and have great ideas and share stories and share success and share ideas for new businesses and things like that. And it's all going to be hosted on this island in the middle of the Caribbean, wherever it is. It's golden sands, blue skies, and all you can eat, best drink, best food. I'll be honest, I'd be booking a one-way ticket. I'd be going to get it sounds brilliant. You would be, anybody in their right mind would be thinking that sounds fun. But obviously, then you've got the other side of it and the dark side to it that then is the real reason why he had the island in the first place, which was to expose people and to get them in vulnerable situations and to put them in these positions where he then had the ability to blackmail them and get what he wanted and start to use them as puppets, really. And the reality is, once that happens, and look, then taken away from that, you're going to have people that probably knew what was going on the island and then said, I want to party and come and get involved in some of the vile goings on that were happening there. So it's tough, isn't it? Because how are you ever going to know whether Elon was trying to get an invite to the networking business sunny side of the island
or the baby oil party
or the Diddy freak off parties?
Well, the problem is, I think it was 2009, Jeffrey Epstein was convicted as a paedophile because there was like 1,000 counts against him or something absolutely astronomically ridiculous. And some of these emails are on from that date, so they're after. So Elon Musk knew he was a convicted paedophile when he sent that email. And Bill Gates and a lot of these people knew he was a convicted, not even like allegedly, like a convicted paedophile when they were sending the emails. So it's like,
it's not looking good.
You're dancing with the devil here, and it's not good.
That's a good way to put it. That's the perfect analogy, and that is true. So there, no forgiveness, no forgiveness for Elon or anybody that is actively still looking to entertain or partner or network with someone that is literally a convicted paedophile and doing it in such a blasé way of going to the extent of traveling to an island that at that point they would be well aware of what was going on, either in full or at least in part, and in part is enough. So this is where it comes. We've found ourselves now in this position where, like you said, half of the files still aren't there. Who else? What's left to be uncovered? But really, what should be happening? What can we do about it? How do we stop it? And what should be the punishment? How do we go about it?
Well, we're actually doing better than America in reality, because anyone who's come out here, like Lord Mandelson, what a guy, not. But there was emails with him. Well, he's been stripped, or he's going to be stripped, looking likely, of his lordship, which I don't think ever happens. But finally, that might actually be something that is going to be happening. But I don't know if do you know the full story of what happened with Lord Mandelson?
Not really, in that sense.
I mean,
obviously, I know.
So in a nutshell, like, he was a part of the Blair government, and he was known as like the slippery snake to get you out of all this shit. So if you ended up in a hot situation, it was kind of like he'll get you out of it. So he was in Tony Blair's ear, kind of doing all this stuff. But anyway, as a result of that, he was friends. Well, he had all this information, and he was also friends with Jeffrey Epstein. So when 2008 happened in the UK, we're getting a bailout of like 500 billion from like the IMF or whatever it was. Mandelson got that information and then gave the information to Jeffrey Epstein, who then put trades on the UK economy recovering, and was basically giving top secret, like stupidly classified information to a convicted paedophile. And then Keir Starmer's obviously been on the stand. He's like, well, did you know, like, about that he was a paedophile and all this stuff? And he's kind of, well, yeah, I did know, but like, we did have investigations. Now he's in the hot seat. But it just shows, like, what on earth? So what should happen really is the people that are in the files that have done the most heinous things should be brought to the stand, and there should be private investigations as to what's going on. the rest of the file should be released. But the only way that's going to happen is by people pressuring, like the Joe Rogans and these people who speak out about it and say, better fuck the files. Because that's pretty much the only reason it's came out, is people pushing and saying, well, you said you were going to do it. Where is it? And we're lucky we live in democracies where people have a voice. Because if this had happened in Russia, you can guarantee that not one file would have come out. No one would have known about it, and nothing would have come out at all. Same as China. But here, obviously, it's different, and it is good that it can come out eventually.
Yeah, it's one of those that you can see them squirming and struggling to try and keep a lid on things, though, can't you? You can see it like with Andrew, Prince Andrew, and it's like everyone knew at that point that he was just an absolute piece of scum. And they tried to keep him hidden and sort of say, like, we'll just send him somewhere and keep things quiet and see what happens. And now it's all come out with more evidence, more issues and more things. And, now he lost his title, so he's no longer a prince and lost all of that. King Charles came out and said that they're going to be happy to work with the police alongside to do an investigation. Like you said, the punishment really is that, he's now living in a massive mansion somewhere. He's still got loads of money. And he's, in his 70s, 60s, 70s. He's not really going to be too phased by it, other than the embarrassment. But I'm sure he's still living a fairly, by any accounts, and certainly by most people's standards, an incredibly lavish and luxurious life. For committing such a crime, Lord Mandelson again loses title, but is he still going to have a fortune and all his money and his house? I'd assume so. So where is the punishment for these people? And then, therefore, where is the deterrent to stop it from happening again? The sequel to Epstein's Island.
Epstein Islands 2.
Yeah, Epstein Island 2. And it's going to happen because this is the reality of what we found ourselves in now as a general society. Is there's just no punishment for anything anymore. Seems like, and I know it's the standard go-to, but people are being punished more for tweets and for calling out against sort of the establishment and things like COVID and things that have come up, and getting punished for that, and immigration and all that side of things. They get punished more for that. But apparently you can travel to an island, get involved in some heinous activity with a lot of underage people that are trafficked and being abused, and nothing happens to you. And it just doesn't set a precedent for anyone. And again, it's the same thing that we find ourselves with the people that are committing the crimes, the illegal immigrants that come around committing crimes. There didn't seem to be any issues of punishment for them. But the jails are full, so then we're releasing people early and they shouldn't be. And then people are escaping, and then we're not arresting people. It's just a shambles. The whole thing is just a shambles, isn't it? And this is where deterrents are important. If you go to the UAE and these other countries where there is a strict punishment for things that are happening in that country, and if you step foot out of line, you are going to be severely punished. And that is a deterrent. It stops people from then behaving in this fashion. And I think for us, for these people, they need to set the standard for them. With Mandelson and Andrew and Bill Gates and all these people, there's got to be a punishment. Something has to happen.
Yeah, well, I think the problem is because they're a part of the establishment, and the establishment sets the rules. The establishment is not necessarily going to punish their own people because they're part of the bigger picture. So it's kind of like, are you really going to be punishing people who are part of your clique and who got you to where you got to get? So it's like they're not going to do it because they're part of the problem. It's like a lead, somewhat like a leader sacking themselves, like the CEO of a business sacking themselves. They tend to get kicked out by the majority or a board or whatever it might be. But they're basically, they set the rules, so they'd be setting a rule to then punish themselves. So they don't do it, do they? They just like to punish people who's easy to punish rather than themselves.
Well, this is realistically why we need a biblical flooding, don't we really? A Noah's Ark style event to come in and wash all of them out.
Reform!
get into that. We do need a complete restart on all these because there's so much deeply embedded corruption within these organizations and within these societies and governments and things now where you're only here because he got you there or she got you there. So you have to do as you're told. Otherwise, we'll remove you from the position or we'll replace you. Or we've now got this on you. So if you step foot out of line or do something we don't agree with, we'll get you by sharing this or telling that or doing this. And it's such a now a corrupt organization of just massive power struggles and
deep-rooted
lies and corruption. Really, is just purely what it comes down to. And so washing it out, and this is why I think for the good part of it, that we have now kind of switched from after what is now 100 years of, or coming up to 100 years-ish of conservative Labour governments where it's really only they're the two main parties and it switches between the two. Well, we've now got these two new parties that have emerged in the Greens and in Reform.
Go on, Zach.
And I look, as much as I've watched a few interviews of that, and again, I'm more of this, I'm sort of in the middle, and I generally, for me, look, I don't think the politics and the government has too much bearing on my life. I like to, regardless of who's in power, steer the course that I'm on and focus on myself. But even looking at what Greens have done and his ideas and his values is something that I massively get on board with, in the sense of he wants everybody to feel, love and inclusivity and support and care. Like, who wouldn't want that in a society like of what he's preaching? But then the issue is that it's like, well, how do you achieve that? And because it's easy to talk about the Garden of Eden and how great it is, it's like, well, how do you actually create that society? It's like, well, you can't really. And then there's the Reform side again as a brand new party that are trying to put Britain first again. So that's really winning quite a lot of support at the minute, which is a good thing. So it's nice to have these two new parties. I think that could be the first step towards this rejuvenation of trust in what is that's essentially going on. Because at this point, it's such a disgrace, and it's like there's a new corruption case every week. There's a new scandal every week because someone's done something wrong. And it is just a disgrace. I mean, even through COVID, remember the health secretary, all the cameras, and he was cheating on his wife. And then Boris had his party.
Dominic Cummings, another one.
And then obviously everything was happening with the actual vaccines and the lies that were being told about elements of the vaccine and all this. It's just one thing after the other, is it now? And the question that I ask myself is, how do you know what to believe anymore? Like, if you are still listening and reading and following what you see in the news and taking that as gospel and seeing what you hear on social media and go, that must be the truth.
Yeah, you're lost, aren't you? You're a lost soul.
I've become so numb to just hearing Laura
Koonsberg on the BBC.
Insert headline here of the next huge topic. And I'm like, oh, yeah, sure it is. There's just so much crap that is coming out now. It's just like, I personally, how do you know what to believe?
Well, the thing is, this is the thing that then blew my mind and blew the doors on everything. And it's still related to, who's in control of the world and who's controlling what. But, Israel, Gaza, everything that was going on there, it was, still is, everywhere. It's about Israel bombing Gaza, and obviously horrendous. It's a war. Obviously, people are dying. I don't know if it's up to about 50,000. Obviously, that includes fighters and civilians, all that sort of stuff. Now, everyone was on the streets. Am I right? Everybody that was passionate about that on both sides, media, like I say, announcing it, horrendous. Now, in the past few weeks, 3 weeks odd, in Iran, they have killed up to 30,000 civilians, gunned down their military for protesting in Iran because they want regime change. Have you seen any protests in the UK about the people and the civilians that have just been gunned down in Iran at all.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely been a few because obviously I've seen, but mainly from the Iranian people and
Yeah.
the previous.
But anything
Persian
from
people,
like
but
the mainland
nothing
news.
mainstream, and nothing as big as what we've obviously experienced for Israel and Palestine.
And it just then
Absolutely
makes you
not.
think, well, why? Well, probably because it's not politically motivated either way. You're not going to be swayed either way, what you read. And it just shows you again, like we're just so molded and pushed into thinking and believing a certain way by whoever owns these media companies. And for what reason? Like, and it just start. I think the best place to start is just asking the question, because I do find it quite fascinating that, you know, all civilians have just been killed, like thousands, if not tens of thousands, in a couple of days. Like, wild. And yet we don't really know. If you ask random people on the street, they'd know nothing about it. But then you'd ask them about Israel, Gaza, and they'd fucking know about it.
Yeah, it's the question of, why do you believe what you believe? Is it because what you've read on the news? Is it because of what someone's told you? And this is that whole argument of three sides of the truth. It's like there's your truth, my truth, and the truth. And I could tell you a fact now about something that you would just immediately assume, because I've told you and I'm a trustworthy person, is 100% gospel truth. But I might have heard it from someone that has told me a version of events that weren't quite accurate. And you might tell another friend, and this is game of Chinese whispers that all of a sudden gets passed along, and then you're getting shared information, and people then all of a sudden believe stuff to be immediately true 100%, and they stand by it. That is the truth. And then they're like, oh, well, have you actually seen the clip? Again, like Donald Trump, where you look at the BBC, the edited BBC clip that he sued them for, and people would say, well, Donald Trump was inciting violence on this particular occasion. And you would believe 100% that that is true. I've seen it with my own eyes. I saw the speech. I've seen it. I know it's true. That is 100% the gospel truth. And then you would say, well, have you seen the full speech? Well, I haven't watched the full speech. Oh, so you saw an edited version of it, which spliced together parts of it to make it look like he was inciting violence. Oh, I didn't know that. And immediately your belief changes because you've been swindled by the media and swindled by someone who has an agenda against a particular person that you now believe to be gospel truth. And then you share that with everyone.
Yeah. One of the things that was mad, and this blew my mind when I watched it. I mean, I suppose it's obvious when you think about it, but the whole Ukraine-Russia, when that really started kicking off, and obviously all our media, like everyone in the West, is all on the same side, especially at the start, where it's all on Ukraine. Obviously, Ukraine were attacked and all this sort of stuff. But I watched a video on YouTube, and someone talked about it, where they'd said, if you watch a video of like the Russian media and watch what they say, it like completely, it's wild. Like I watched it, it was converted to English, and it's like, they show you videos of like Ukrainian soldiers like attacking like, you know, civilians, like, you know, smashing doors, blowing stuff up, killing this, killing that. Like, and it's like the Russians will look at it and go, yeah, oh my God. And then they watch NATO encroachment, or how they see it, that, you know, we wouldn't advance past Poland or whatever it was. And then Poland joins, the Baltics join, like all these countries then join NATO. And like they kind of frame it in the way they see it. And their media then portrays it to their people. And you can see why, again, you get two camps or countries that then go, oh my God, you're evil. No, you're evil. And they're just, all that's happened is you've been propagandized by media and people who are in charge to make you think a certain way.
It's why you should always be open to new ways of thinking. And I think that's the biggest thing that has plagued our generation and the current generations now of this smartphone, social media society, is that everyone believes what they immediately read and then has no care or attention to bother to try and be unbiased, towards the other side. Whether you love Donald Trump or hate him, like, be open to listen to him and form your opinions in full. Again, Zach Polanski, like I've just said, my first thoughts when I'd look at someone like that is, you know, he's raving mad, and he talks, some of the things that comes out of his mouth are ridiculous, you know, completely insanity.
Getting rid of our nuclear weapons being one of them.
Mental. But equally, then just because he says one thing that I strongly disagree with, or that somebody else would say, oh yeah, he thinks he used to be able to hypnotize people to grow their boobs bigger and stuff. Do you know what I mean? It's like, just because I've listened to one person on the one side goes, yeah, oh yeah, well, he must be crazy, then nothing comes out of his mouth is credible. It's just not true. Some of the things that he says are going to be really, if you actually listen, I saw he said that he wants to legalize all drugs, and could just immediately start by saying, that's ridiculous. So what you want? And he said he thinks landlords should be illegal to be a landlord. And it's like, right, so you're gonna turn around and say a crack dealer is going to be, not be punished for supplying crack cocaine, but somebody that wants to rent a house out will go to jail. And when you look at it through that lens, you kind of say, well, that's just absolute insanity. Then you listen to the one side's argument for it, and you would be sided with the one side going, it's ridiculous, and then Zach Plansky's an idiot. But if you listen to what he says himself and his idea and his rhetoric and his mindset behind it, I read a really good book called Narconomics, which is about how much it actually costs to fight the war on drugs, and it is ridiculous. Yeah. And the only way to ever win against the cartels is to legalize it. It's the only way you will ever win, because they will always outsmart you. And again, if you think about how drug economics have changed in the last 50 years, the answer is they haven't really at all. They find ways to cut it, cheapen it. And if you look at the price of a Big Mac and how that has gone up with inflation, the price of drugs has not changed, because the cartels are ensuring that, by all accounts, they have better economics than us. So looking at it through a different lens, you then start to see people and their mindsets and their ideas differently, because you're just more open to their reasoning rather than just being shut off and saying Zach Polanski's an idiot, so anything that comes out of his mouth is wrong.
Well, there's a literal case study for it already, and that's prohibition in America, where they banned alcohol and the policing had to go through the roof. They had to then, arrest people that had jobs that, in theory, they were just running booze, just trying to make a bit of money. And it's like they locked all these people up. Like I say, booze being banned, it was like coming across the border. Black markets then sprung up to then fill the gap, because there's a market, so there's a gap that's going to fill that market. And then eventually it got to a point where it was costing that much money, and it was so difficult to police that eventually they had to just strip it off, because it was just costing too much money, and just say, right, actually, yeah, we'll just cancel it, won't do it anymore. And it's the same thing, and that's why I think it's good that they're going down the route of like legalizing weed or marijuana, or whatever you want to call it. But, it's difficult when you look at all these things, and then who makes the decisions, and then who makes the decisions of each country. And I think Epstein, that whole thing coming out, shows you how, with bribery and blackmail, how you can try and seize control. And I think to have it separated as much as possible is probably the only way of really trying to stop it.
I'm going to say what dirt I've got on you. A bit of blackmail.
I was going to say, he looked at me, I was like, Jesus.
A bit of blackmail to see if I don't know. Although, I don't think you've got much that have.
Yeah, careful, Ty. No, but
your crypto portfolio.
Oh yeah,
ideas. No, but it's true. Like you said, look, at the end of the day, the premise of this is who's really running the world, and there's time for a change. And I think it's nice to see that. I think after Donald Trump, I think there'll be a big change again, because I think even people on the right who voted him in, the pendulum swung back now the other way, where it's merely against immigration, and they've kind of gone, well, we're not this extreme on the immigration. We want to see some of it, but we want it done properly. And I think there's this new age coming in now, which is nice, and all these files have been lifted. Not all of them, but hopefully more will be. And I think it's just hopefully giving people a bit more of an incentive or an insight into what's really going on. Hopefully makes them question their beliefs enough to start to be a bit more, one, open-minded to new ideas, and two, probably stop blindly supporting people that they knew to be righteous, knew to be virtuous, knew to be the best people ever. And all of a sudden they're now slipping their wife drugs because he's cheated on her and giving her an STI. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, actually, no, he's a bit of a twat. So it is tough. But realistically, I think try and be a bit more open-minded. Don't believe everything that you see and hear, and form your own opinions of people that you know personally and not what you've read in the media. I think is the best way, a good way to end.
Take a nuanced approach.
100%. There you go. Epstein. It's a sick, sick time, everything that's been going on, but the world is a crazy place. You can only do what you can do. Make sure that you are subscribed, because a lot of this channel is about growing yourself, your own life, and improving your journey and finding success. It's always important to know what's going on in the world around you and see how it affects the day-to-day life in the country that you're living in. And the lid has been well and truly lifted. So keep your eye out for more updates on the coming days and weeks on the Epstein Files. But for now, shit's mad out here. So stay subscribed, and we'll see you in the next video.